Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the third instalment on facing healing from codependency. And if you have a question, you feel free to put it in the comments. And towards the end, we'll go through it. So it's Diane Young here on behalf of South Pacific Private. And just while people are logging on, I'd like to acknowledge that we are here today on the land of the Gay-Magal people, part of the Eora Nation. The Gay-Magal are the traditional owners of the saltwater country and are part of the oldest surviving continuous culture in the world. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Now, facing codependency and healing from it is a very, very big topic, as many of you would be aware. And tonight we're talking about what we need to do to heal from codependency and learning how to reconnect with our own needs, our own values and our identity. Also learning how to build new patterns of communication, learning to say no without guilt and letting go of the belief that my worth is tied to what I do for others. I do know personally that recovery is possible with time, support and the right tools, and tonight I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like after you've become aware that perhaps you're from a codependent, you're living with codependency. So let me just take a step back for a minute. Childhood trauma doesn't stay in childhood, and even when we grow up and we succeed and build a seemingly stable life, the emotional imprints of those early wounds tend to show up in how we relate to others, especially in our closest and intimate relationships. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean to say partner. It could be, friendships, deep friendships, and colleagues that we become close to. So trauma often operates beneath the surface. It drives our reactions, it drives our fears, and can guide, and influence our attachment styles without us even realising it. So the good news is that once we learn to recognise the patterns that we've fallen into as a result of how we were raised, we can start to break them instead of repeating them. So I want to just quickly run through some of the things that may be how unresolved childhood trauma shows up in our adult relationships and what we can do about it. When we're talking about, we're always working at South Pacific with the model of developmental immaturity, which is, of course, Pia Mellody put together, the late Pia Mellody put together many, many years ago. And she put it together as a result of her own journey and learning about how her childhood trauma had impacted her. And I've talked about that before, so I won't repeat that. Many of you know what a little of her story. It's well documented, and she talks about it. There's many YouTube clips still up with her talking about it. So I guess the one that stands out when we're talking about reconnecting with our own needs, values and identity, which was one of the things I mentioned before, we're talking about what is one of the most common echoes of childhood trauma is the deep fear of being left, of being abandoned, of being neglected. And if our early caregivers were very inconsistent and emotionally unavailable, we may find ourselves constantly on edge in relationships, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting to find out what we've done wrong now. This can lead to being clingy or over-checking or even testing our partner's loyalty. And will always be from one side or the other. And the healthier move, as we move into recovery, is to acknowledge the fear, not let it dictate our behaviour. Now, it's easier said than done. Fear in and of itself is an emotion that's healthy. The gift of fear is wisdom. I'm frightened. Do I need to be frightened of anything here right now? Is there anything I need to take care of right now to keep myself safe? Or am I in a situation where I actually am genuinely need to be frightened, like walking down a dark street or something? So just even naming the fear out loud when it comes up can help us separate the past from the present. Therapy and journaling, of course, to get very clear about how fear is showing up in our life. The toxic level of fear is panic and terror, and often clients will come and say to me, I'm having panic attacks, as though it's something that's happening in the moment now, and it's not what's happening now. There's something in the moment that's triggering you into something that's very old. So it's always helpful to know what it is I'm frightened of, to try and articulate that. It's a very pervasive, all-pervasive, in 12-step recovery they talk about it being the evil corroding thread through our lives. So it's a very big deal, particularly if you've had a particularly overtly abusive history with the parent or caregiver. The second one I want to talk about is, in terms of needs and values and identity, is when we struggle with trust. And if we were betrayed as a child, it's very hard to believe that everybody else isn't going to do the same thing to us. You may second guess your partner's motives or your friend's motives. You may even look through their phone, which is a big no-no, but many people do it. You may assume that they have bad intent when they've just made a mistake. And this creates unnecessary conflict and pushes people away with our behaviour, because we're constantly on them about, where are they, what are they doing, why are they doing what they're doing. There's no sense of trust. Now the reality is, and many of you know this, if I don't trust myself, then there's absolutely no way that I'm going to trust you. And when clients will come in and talk about, I don't trust my partner, or I don't trust my adult child, or something like that, once they finish talking for a bit, I'll often say to them, yeah, I can hear that. Do you trust you? And habitually the answer is often no, I don't. So coming back to this point of reconnecting with our own needs, values and identity, it's imperative we find out what are the aspects of us that we don't trust, and why is that? And therapy is often a very good way to find that out. The practical shift when we don't trust easily is to slowly, particularly in relationships, slowly build trust. Not in all or nothing. I mean, you've met someone for a month, suddenly you're going to divulge everything, suddenly you're going to trust them with everything. No. There's a process to go through as we unpack with somebody, getting to know them. So trust should be seen as a process we create with someone, not a leap into overnight. It's a slowly built experience. And it's often not only that I had to trust me to learn to trust you, but then there's a respect in it. It's like if you do the thing you say you're going to do, then I can trust what you say. I mean, I can remember years ago, one of the colleagues I worked with at South Pacific was asked to do something, and she said, no, I can't do that. And the person who'd asked her said to her later, I'm glad that you said no, because you've said no to me, I can trust your yes. So it was very clear. It was a profound moment for me, because no was always a difficult thing to say. Not anymore, but was then. The third thing I want to talk about is being emotionally numb. Now this happens to quite a lot of people who shut down their feelings entirely, who as a child were not allowed to have any, or learnt that having any was dangerous, and learnt that having any put them in a situation where they may be abused. So you may look strong on the outside but feel detached, or sort of as though you're going through the motions when you're in love. And this emotional numbing will keep you from experiencing true intimacy. And many of you know intimacy is into me, I see. I let you see into me, because vulnerability is the gateway to connection. So if this is you, start small. Practice expressing small emotions, a little bit, even if it feels uncomfortable. Let yourself say, that hurt my feelings, or I'm excited about this, or I'm actually quite fearful about this interview I'm going to have. Over time your emotional range will widen, and make closeness feel less dangerous, and you will feel less exposed because you can trust your own inner knowing, trust the other person, and also trust the emotions that you're beginning to name. It's classic with codependency. Often people will have, in South Pacific we have the 8 emotions up on the wall, and so we'll be saying to people all the time, how do you feel? And they'll be looking at them going, I don't know, I'm angry and joyful, They don't know how they're feeling because they've never actually been taught what the emotions are, and they've never been taught that it's safe to come down here. They've lived all their time up here. The fourth one, when we're overreacting to conflict. So if we grow up in chaos, even small disagreements can feel threatening. So you might explode, withdraw, shut down at the slightest sign of tension. The problem is that partners often experience your reaction as disproportionate, which fuels more conflicts as they can't understand why you've lost it about something that was small, like we were having dinner or what we're eating for dinner even. The better approach is to pause before responding. Now, I often say to clients, hit the pause button, even if you don't think you have to. A minute, 30 seconds can often shift how you respond. So hit the pause button, count to 10, very old thing, I know. Excuse yourself for a breather, walk outside, come back in. So the pause gives us, our nervous system, time to regulate so we can respond, not react. Reacting is that quick, very quick response. Responding is taking a moment. How do I respond to this? And sometimes it might be, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. It doesn't matter, as long as you're not reacting that hard way. So we're now into the part where we're trying to build new patterns of communication. Hitting a pause button, taking a moment before we respond. Difficulty accepting love would be another one that I would say comes up, and this is where we haven't allowed ourselves to have any boundaries. What we have is walls. So unresolved trauma often draws people towards what feels familiar, even if it's unhealthy. If you grew up around neglect, you may subconsciously seek out partners who are emotionally distant or inconsistent. Anyone who's dealt with codependency understands this very clearly. The brain mistakes familiar for safe, even when it isn't. So breaking this cycle means we recognise the patterns and intentionally choose people who treat us well. Now, even if they feel boring at first, pay attention, even if they feel boring at first. Healthy love should eventually feel exciting and steady at the same time. You can hold both. But if it's always got to be the rush, always got to be on, always got to be, I'm alive because I'm in this relationship, it's often not real. It's a trauma-bonded feeling from something in your history. If affection wasn't given to you as a child, receiving love as an adult can feel uncomfortable or even suspicious. We can't understand it. Compliments may make us squirm. Consistent care may cause us to push someone away. So instead of sabotaging and pushing them away, practice simply saying thank you when someone offers kindness. This is unusual, particularly if it wasn't given as a child, any affection. I can't tell you the amount of people that I've worked with when I say, so did you get some hugs as a child? No. Were you ever told you were loved? No. It's not what I received. So when they grow up into adulthood, whilst intellectually, having watched Disney and every other movie on television, they know that there's supposed to be some sort of form of connection and love in the world. They have no way of being allowed to receive it. They can't open up to receive it because they're walled all the time. So we just simply, we don't need to believe it fully yet, acceptance is the first step towards rewiring your sense of worthiness. This is a really big step for codependent people and children, adults that came out of traumatic histories. When we're talking about learning to say no without guilt, we need to be aware of that. When we respond to some people respond to childhood trauma by convincing themselves they don't need anyone. So we might pride ourselves on doing everything alone. But in relationships, this blocks intimacy. And let's face it, we're in relationships for intimacy. Refusing help, rejecting comfort, never letting your guard down keeps partners at a distance. Coming back to that wall. I challenge my clients, try experimenting with small acts of letting other people in here. Like asking for advice. What do you think about that? Or admitting when we are struggling, or admitting we might need help with something. Could you help me with that? I've never had anybody say no, ever. Even if they don't know what they're doing. True strength is not about being untouchable. You know that. It's about being open without losing yourself. So when we actually then get to the point where we're starting to learn to say no without guilt, we're learning to meet our own needs first. That's the first thing. Not put everybody else's needs first. It's a classic codependency. If you're all right and if you're happy and you're okay, then I'm okay. No. We've got to flip it. I have to put myself first. And I do not mean in a selfish, self-centered way. I mean in a, what do I need to do to take care of myself today, in this moment, right now? I'm not trying to solve my whole life problem at once, but I'm trying to do something now to look after myself. If love in your childhood felt conditional, which it often does, if you get an A in maths, you'll be accepted. If you get to be captain of the cricket team, you'll be, you're of worth. If you keep your room tidy, look after your siblings, whatever it is. You may have learnt to earn it by being good. As an adult, this translates into over-accommodating in all of the areas of your life, avoiding conflict, putting others' needs ahead of your own. While it keeps the peace temporarily, it also breeds resentment and exhaustion. So we need to learn to tolerate discomfort. Now, this is very hard. When we set boundaries, which is coming back into the building new patterns of communication, when we set boundaries, we start with low-state situations and build our way up. A partner won't vanish. A partner who loves you won't vanish. A partner who honours you won't vanish because you've said no. And a small boundary might be, have you ever heard two codependents deciding what to have for dinner? Oh dear Lord. So what would you like to do? Well, I don't know what I'd like for dinner. What would you like for dinner? Well, I'm not sure either. Well, what about India? No, I don't want India. What about Thai? No, I don't want Thai. It'll go on for 10 minutes. It's like somebody's make a decision. But of course, when we are so inexorably linked with someone else that we don't know ourselves, we don't know what our needs, values and identity are, we don't even know what we want to eat. And it sounds silly saying it now, but it's very true. You watch your friends when you're out at dinner and they're saying, what are you going to have for dinner? I don't know. What are you going to have for dinner? I don't know. What are you going to... It goes on. It drives you insane. It's like, just make a decision. So it's very important to not do the people pleasing. You can ask if someone wants something, you can ask if someone needs help with something, but you don't ever ride in and just do for others without being respectful and asking them, and you don't assume you know what they need because you don't know. If they haven't asked you, you don't know. We do a lot of thinking about it for other people, a lot of making up for other people. Okay, reconnecting with our own needs. If you have been raised in a family system where you believe that there is something inherently wrong with you, the belief can follow you into adulthood, making you settle for less than what you deserve. How many times do I say this in a day? You may accept poor treatment, or you believe you have to prove your value in a relationship. The real change begins by challenging that inner script. Write down evidence of what your strengths are. What are you good at? Work with your therapist or your friends to get a positive affirmation for yourself that that's true, or that you would like to be true. Not cheesy. Surround yourself with people who reflect back your worth to you. When you start to value yourself, you will find that the landscape around you changes. The people around you will start to change. They will love you and like you for who you are. And this is very foreign for people that have grown up in codependency. Letting go of our belief that our worth is tied to what we do for other people. So, for many of us, closeness itself feels unsafe because vulnerability once led to pain. You may avoid deeper conversations, keep partners at a surface level, or disengage when things get serious. The irony is that you want connection. You want to lean in. But the protective walls prevent it. A practical step is pacing intimacy. Slowly, slowly. Let yourself share one meaningful thing at a time about yourself and see how your partner handles it. Often, safe intimacy is built in layers, not leaps. So slowly we start to share. And this is why, I think the advent of phones and internet, and I mean, God knows we're on the internet now, but phones and television and streaming services and everything, it's like sometimes turn the phone off and just have a conversation with your partner. Look at them. See what their day was like. And I'm not talking all night, but certainly over dinner, a chat. How was your day? What was a good thing that happened? What was a bad thing? I do that with the grandkids when I pick them up once a week. What was a good thing that happened today? And they'll tell me something funny, and then a bad thing that happened will be something, we had assembly again. It's like, it's hilarious, what they think's bad meant what they think's good, but we need to think about that ourselves. What's a good thing? And sometimes it's just I had a laugh with somebody. I saw a client I hadn't seen for a while, and I felt very warm when I realised how well they were doing. That's a good thing. So, avoidance of intimacy, that's a real red flag for anybody who's codependent. And if you're in recovery from codependency and you start going out with someone and they have trouble with it, then that's a big red flag. And that's not to say they can't get through it, but you need to be mindful of it. So we want to be aware that the trauma also can set the stage for unconscious repetition. This is what we call trauma bonds. So we may find ourselves replaying our parents' dynamic in our adult relationships. This is often terrifying for us. Whether it's constant fighting, one-sided caregiving, emotional distance, the mind and the brain gravitates to what it knows, even when it's harmful. So awareness is the key here. So getting really clear on how your codependency shows up in your relationships. Notice the patterns. Ask yourself, does this remind me of my history? Does this remind me of home? And if so, it's likely trauma bonding, and breaking it requires making different choices on purpose. You will probably not be able to do this without therapeutic support. And you need to have solid running mates, friends that are similar, that understand this stuff. Controlling behaviour. So we're talking now about not being too anti-dependent or we need to be interdependent, not too dependent. So if we had our early environment was unpredictable, we couldn't quite guarantee what we were walking into today, and tomorrow to be something different, or in an hour's time to be something different. Controlling others can feel like the only way to stay safe. But in relationships, this will show up as micromanaging, jealousy, and needing constant reassurance. Are we okay? Am I okay? Am I, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't create security, it creates resentment. The healthier route is building internal safety, learning self-soothing techniques like deep breathing, grounding exercises or journaling, so you don't have to rely on control to feel okay. I often say to clients when they're, not when it's been pouring with rain like it has been recently, but when they're feeling out of control, go and stand barefoot on grass, ground yourself, do some breathing exercises, do some journaling, reach out to people. So we want to also talk about communication, which is really the nub of all of this. Children who learnt that their needs were not important often grow into adults who don't know how to have any needs at all, and certainly don't know how to voice them. You may hope that your partner just knows what you need, or you may suppress your desires until a resentment builds and then you'll erupt. A better approach is simple, direct communication. So what I need is X, what I feel is X. What I'm feeling is a bit unsafe right now, what I'm feeling is angry right now, what I need is a hug. Or I need you to sit with me and have a cup of tea for 10 minutes. It feels awkward at first, but clarity stops the confusion and strengthens the relationship. Confusion often, we end up in a state of confusion because we won't set a boundary for ourselves or for somebody else or with somebody else. It's important that we do that when we're talking about building new patterns of communication. Taking a moment to talk about how we're feeling. Okay. When we're talking about being too dependent, we're talking about trauma that makes us latch on too tightly because the thought of being alone feels unbearable. You may become dependent on your partner for validation, for happiness, or even identity. It's like, if I'm with you, I'm okay. If I'm in a partnership, I'm okay. If I've got someone to live with, I'm okay. So while closeness is healthy, over-attachment drains both people. It actually often pushes the other one away. Work on developing your sense of self outside of the relationship through hobbies, friendships, personal goals, and it can be something really simple. A strong relationship is made of two whole people, not one clinging to the other. Because, it's like we suck the life force out of them when we do that. Perfectionism is another one. Kids who learn that love was earned often grow up into adults who believe they must be flawless to deserve attention. I've got to get everything right. We're bordering on OCD at this point. We may obsess about being the perfect partner. We never show weakness or that we have a need. We hide mistakes. And the irony is that perfectionism blocks true intimacy because intimacy requires authenticity. A healthier path is to embrace imperfection and the messiness that we have in our loving relationships. Our flaws and the vulnerability are what makes relationships real. And I've yet met anybody who's perfect, just saying. And I have been on the planet for a while. The last one I want to talk about, we talk about being spontaneous, open and moderate in the model, the developmental immaturity. And this often happens where people avoid long-term commitments and relationships because commitment feels like a trap. You feel like, you've got someone who's got their hand around your throat. So if your childhood home was you felt suffocated and unsafe, You may associate closeness with loss of freedom. But avoidance keeps you lonely. So the key is reframing commitment as a choice, not confinement, not entrapment. You're not reliving your childhood, you're creating something new. So start by committing in small, manageable ways, and notice how it feels to build safety instead of reliving fear. These are, very easy for me to roll off the tongue. It does take its time. There's other aspects like anger issues, over-attachment, difficulty forgiving. But in fact, what I want to say to you is that if we are starting from the premise of I have had childhood trauma, I have had abuse, whether it's overt or covert, I don't know how to be myself in a relationship without losing myself, I don't know how to be in a relationship without losing myself, then I need to do, who am I? How's my self-esteem? What are my boundaries, my internal and external boundaries? How am I managing them? Am I meeting the needs of myself and my wants first before everybody else? And I don't mean selfishly, but in a healthy way. Have I learnt to be interdependent? That is, we all need one another. I mean, we're pack animals. But I don't want to be in that position where I'm not looking after myself and able to stand in my own resilience, my own integrity here. And then finally to be spontaneous, open and moderate. So I think that that probably brings me to the end now. Thank you for those of you who have posted. Ronja, yes, exactly what you teach your clients. Thank you. Hines, very good to hear from you. And David, very good to hear from you too. This is Linky. Yes, thank you, Linky. Might be time to see me again, absolutely. I want you just to take some time with this, and reach out for help. South Pacific is run under the model of developmental immaturity, which comes out of the childhood trauma. It's how it shows up in our adult life, how it shows up in our present addictions and mood disorders and anything else that we're presented with. And we can always have a deeper dive into our history. And I've certainly been doing it for a very long time, and I still have to go to therapy, so there you go. Thank you, Emma. That's great. And Sharon, good to hear from you too. Have a good evening and a pleasant evening, and as usual this will be posted on the South Pacific YouTube channel. Thank you, Wendy. And so you can replay it if at any point you think it might be helpful. Pia Melody has written a couple of very good books, Facing Codependency, Facing Love Addiction. There are many other things on the market now, but she was the pioneer, and I certainly pay tribute to her. So thank you very much for staying with us tonight. Mick, I've just seen 908 days. That's fabulous. I'm excited. And Stuart, great to see you. And look forward to seeing you soon. So, all's well. Stay safe. Enjoy your evening. Thank you for logging on.